may throw at you. And I'm living proof. That's me, Chuck Norris. You probably know me as one of the biggest action movie stars of the last 50 years. I also served in the United States Air Force, and I'm a world champion black belt. The things I value most in life are my faith, my family, and my country. But there's one more really important thing we don't talk about enough: our health. And as we get older, it becomes more and more of a problem. After age 30, our metabolism changes. We have less energy and we gain weight easier, especially around the hips and belly. After age 40, muscles start to decline. Our bodies feel weaker. And for most people,
Good.
It gets worse.
We're live
year.
on
Simple things like
Viva
hikes
Barnes
and sports
Law.
get harder and harder. After 50,
Live
collagen
on
breaks
Rumble.
down and our joints start to ache. It gets tough to play with kids and grandkids.
We're live on
or
Rumble.
sometimes even lift household objects or open a jar. We lose mental energy. Brain fog becomes normal. And inside our bodies, even our digestion slows down.
All right. Well, I'm going to stop our first sponsor there, by the way. Sorry, we had some technical issues, and I think the expression is third time's the charm, but I think we're on the fourth try here. It doesn't matter. I'm so on the verge of saying, we'll do it live. We're doing it live. Good morning, everybody. It looks like it's working now. Everybody share the link around on Twitter and social medias, because there may be some confusion that people might think we're live on an older link. I'm going to make sure that I've ended all of those links. We've got one heck of a show today. And if you don't know who Austin Peters is, Austin Petersen, not Austin Peters. I was just literally watching Coyote Peterson, and I'm getting confused here. We're going to get there in a second. Before we bring in the guest and make sure we're good on the internet, right? This is working now. Let me make sure here. Yeah, it looks good. It's good. Whoever asked, are we watching a commercial? Well, first of all, we're not watching the full commercial, because I watched the entire Chuck Norris video over the weekend. And by the way, it's good stuff. Chuck Norris is one of our sponsors. I'm going to thank our sponsors before we even get started. But you're going to want to go watch that video if you are unfamiliar with Chuck Norris. If you are wondering what is up with Chuck Norris, he's still around in his 80s, looking good and kicking butt. What's more is that he's even stronger, works out longer, has plenty of energy left over for his grandkids. He did this by making one change, which he describes in that video that we started watching. He says he feels like he's in his 50s. His wife even started doing it, and she's never felt better. She looks 10 years younger, leaner body. I feel weird complimenting the body of Chuck Norris. I half expect to get roundhouse kicked to the face. Chuck made that special video, and it explains everything. Make sure you watch it by going to chuckdefense.com/Viva or by clicking the link in the description. It'll change the way you think about your health. Once again, chuckdefense.com/Viva. Click on the link. You won't believe it's interesting. I ran it by some scientists, and it's actually good stuff. Just a reminder, Chuck Norris is 84 years old, and he's got more energy than I would dare say 95% of all Americans. He discovered he could create dramatic changes to his health simply by focusing on 3 things that sabotage our body as we age. Watch his method by clicking on the link. Thank you very much. The link is in the description. And we'll get to the second sponsor in a bit. I'm sure there'll be a good segue in our discussion. So Austin Petersen, by the way, for those of you who don't know, I guess he's like one of the cool libertarians in that I think he became conservative over time. And I don't consider myself conservative at all. I actually might consider myself to be a little bit more libertarian ideologically. But then you watch those libertarian conventions and you see, we're going to talk about it. You see like the difference between what the libertarians did to Trump versus what RFK did to Trump. And if your goal is to get in an administration to affect change, you might want to opt for the RFK Jr. strategy and not the libertarian. And we never got the discussion. I'm going to get Dave Smith back on to have this, but not the go F yourself, Donald Trump libertarian strategy. Like strategically might not be the best thing. But bottom line, if you don't know who Austin Petersen is, you're going to know. But I think a lot of you do know, because a lot of you were demanding that this happened. And so it shall be. Ask and ye shall get. Austin, are you ready for me to bring you in? Thumbs up. He's good. Austin, all right. Let me see. Oh, you know what? I might have to keep it out. No, we're going to let it out so we can let people see what's going on in the backdrop. Then we're going to zoom in. Austin, sir, how good?
Yes. Much better now that we're hanging out. I've been hearing from my people as well that there needs to be a meeting of the minds. I love that you brought up Chuck Norris in the beginning. Congratulations on getting him as your sponsor. If you told me as a kid, 1980s, you could have a show and you could be sponsored by Chuck Norris, I mean, the peak of jealousy here as a martial artist for 20 years. But yeah, huge inspiration to me. But I'm glad we get to have this conversation. Yeah, I am a Trump-friendly libertarian. Started out as running against him in 2016 as a libertarian presidential candidate. And at the time, he had said that he was going to do a lot of things that I would consider socialist, authoritarian, things that I would absolutely campaign against. And then when he was president, he didn't do any of that stuff. As a matter of fact, conservatives got really mad at him, and some of them tried to primary him this time based around his libertarian accomplishments. And at the end of the day, I mean, rhetoric is one thing. You say one thing, you do another. I don't care what people say. I really care about what people do, especially when they're in public office. Trump was the most libertarian president we've seen politically since Ronald Reagan, who was rhetorically very libertarian, but in terms of actions may not pass a sniff test. I blame the neocons in his cabinet. But Trump, the most libertarian in policy since Calvin Coolidge. This is why people like Robert F. Kennedy Jr. can comfortably jump on board a campaign like this. People who are independent-minded, anyone who stands against the regime, the global regime, the international socialists, right, the Marxists, the cultural Marxists, the left, the wokies, anyone who fights against the authoritarianism that we're seeing in places like the UK, or anyone who looks at someone like Javier Milei in Argentina and says, that's the way I want to see the USA going, is got to be on Team Trump in 2024. Yeah, I've had an evolution, but facts are facts. Change your mind when you're confronted with facts that contradict your views. Be willing to change your views based on the reality.
Austin, we jumped right into it, but I'm not sure that for those who don't even know who you are, because I'm not going to dive into your childhood as much as I ordinarily would, but
I'm obscure. Niche.
Well, you're not quite so obscure. I think we have a large overlapping crowd. You changed angles. What happened there?
Yeah, look at that.
Some high-tech stuff going on. Well, first of all, you ran for president in 2016 for the Libertarian Party, correct?
Yeah. I was supporting Rand Paul, and he was my guy. I had been a Libertarian Party member and activist and had done a lot for the party for about 10 years. And Gary Johnson was kind of a wet noodle. He wasn't really campaigning at this time. And when Rand had started to lose and Trump had started to surge, I stepped up to try and just be a voice for these ideas and hopefully represent our ideas well, right? Obviously, super underdog. I knew what my options were, but I would have a chance as a different kind of a voice. And in 2016, if you can kind of remember, Gary Johnson ended up being the candidacy. The Libertarian Party really started to lose their steam and their mojo after that. Maybe I would have accidentally caused a Hillary Clinton presidency in 2016. Maybe it wasn't the best thing that I become the candidate at that time for our country. What's good for me politically or professionally may not be what's best for the country from a 2016 perspective, if you're more right-leaning conservative libertarian these days. I do consider myself to be an ideological libertarian, absolutely, and a member of the Republican Party and willing to coalition and to build coalitions with people that I have disagreements with, people like Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who I think, in many stances like environmentalism and other things, I think he's kind of a crackpot, but you know what? He's my crackpot. We'll argue about this after we own the libs.
Backing it up all the way, did I see on Wikipedia that you were born in a place called Peculiar?
Yes.
You were born, your hometown is called Peculiar.
Where the odds are with you.
Okay, I don't know what the second part means, but what does the second part mean?
Where the odds are with you, right?
Oh,
where the odds are with the double entendre, right? Our city council took that down in favor of some very stodgy corporate, bricks and mortar instead of that fun sign we had for years as a kid growing up. And man, it just never felt like the same Peculiar again, because it's if you're going to have a name like Peculiar, you got to embrace the weird, and this was actually a point I wanted to make to you about we libertarians, right? Those who really do think of themselves as philosophical, limited government libertarians. Is we kind of we are different from normies and conservatives and liberals in one really important way. The way we think, they've actually measured this, is that we really rank kind of low compared to the rest of the population when it comes to disgust. And that really resonates across policy, what we're willing to tolerate and put up with. Do
you mean disgust as in being talked about, or disgust as in people are repulsed by some libertarians?
That is the case as well. That is the case as well. Well, you would if you find yourself, if you're the type of person who likes strong smells, for example, if you smell perfume in public, right? Or maybe a cologne, or maybe it's a thick cologne. And they're being offensive, but maybe you can't tolerate to an extent like the smell of other people. There are people who are very sensitive, have very sensitive nostrils. They have a higher level of disgust. But what's interesting is that there appears to be a correlation between the level of disgust that people feel for their fellow humans. And you see this kind of in like Karen behavior and stuff. People like the COVID nanny statists, right? The little tyrants and the authoritarians who in their government policy, they don't like their neighbors for whatever reason. And they want to call the cops on them. Oh, because they're violated COVID policy. But really it's like some, 1980s like television movie, like The Burbs, where you've got some nosy neighbor and they're just, maybe they covet your property or your land, or you've had some problem in the past with them. I mean, America has a very authoritarian impulse. There is a strong man like desire, and I think that's anywhere in the world. But the Constitution of the United States, the true libertarians who fight back against authoritarianism of all stripes. Remember Jefferson's famous quote, right? I have declared eternal hostility against every form of tyranny over the mind of man, right? Those who can stand there and with clear conscience say, yeah, I'm with you, TJ. I'm with you, Tommy J, right? We've managed to hold it back here in the United States. Second Amendment maybe was a bulwark during COVID. They didn't put us in camps like Australia did. They know what it'd be like wading through Louisiana, Mississippi, and Georgia, and Missouri, and Arkansas muds. They don't want to mess with us on that level. But still, like, there's a disgust level. And that's where I think to some extent on like, if you just think about this as a, visceral thing, people who feel disgust with their neighbors, a higher level of disgust tend to be conservatives and liberals. And they want the government to punish their enemies or the people they find disgusting. And the rest of us libertarians, we really would just like to be left alone. And we don't really mind if people are gay or straight or Christian or Muslim or what have you. We can pretty much tolerate a lot of things. But I can't tolerate tyranny. I can't tolerate transing the kids. There's a certain level of disgust that I have, right, that I still think that is worthy of a civilizational protection mechanism, perhaps as like a antibacterial response, or antibiotic response that I have to tyranny. And whether it comes from left or right, it is no question about the difference between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. They are like black and white, right? Literally, metaphorically, right? This is the election that will define the future of the United States, maybe for 100 years. I don't know if we can stem the tide. There's good reasons to worry when you see the polls, but then don't trust the polls. I guess I consider myself to be a very pragmatic libertarian. Radical. I have a heart in me beats the heart of a radical, but I want to get things done. I want to,
And now someone in the chat says, I wish I should probably put in better notes as to describing who's going to be on the show, but I could, but I don't. Maybe I should. But I said you're born in Peculiar, but now I forget the state. What state was that? Is it? I want to say
Missouri.
Peculiar, Missouri. Okay. By the way, did you know that there's a place in Canada called Swastika, Ontario? Not a joke. I drove through it. And I'm like, did that sign just say swastika? And if you go to
1908. It's okay. They can be.
It predates it. But so hold on. We'll get into what you're doing now. Childhood, born in Missouri. I think you had several siblings, correct?
Oh yeah, I have an older brother, Justin Petersen, who is like, he became based in Red Pill recently. He was kind of like, he was a Democrat who was standing still, and then suddenly is a Republican now because of the Overton window.
Well, much like an RFK, I would say. Maybe they pushed him out, and he didn't just.
Yeah, kind of. There's like a little bit of both, right? I mean, once they're pushing them out, so obviously, they're going to move a little that way. But my brother was that way, and now he comes on my show every week on Fridays. We have like a Family Friday, which I checked out your family channel. I love that stuff, and I was reading about your family history too. I think there's a lot. We're very similar in that way, and also we both ran for office, right? So my brother Justin,
for parties that had absolutely no chance of winning.
Well, you got to sometimes you got to take a stand. You know what I mean?
Sure.
You got to fight a good fight. Win some, lose some. It's not over yet. I won my first election this year as a Donald Trump delegate, so I was excited for that. So I finally said broke my losing streak.
We're getting into that for sure.
My little sister Stephanie, Jody. We adopted her when I was 10 years old. I have a nephew from her, so daughter, my nephew, Mario, and he just went to high school, and my dad's pop's still kicking. Mom passed away when I was young from cancer, but the family farm is still there. Just down the street is my mother's, tombstone. and there's a strong family vibes back in Stonegate Farm. I'm about 2.5 hours away from there in the capital of Missouri, and I broadcast my show here, and I try and affect policy here on a local level. You know, I've done national stuff, and it's easier to affect change here on the local level. And Missouri is a beautiful state, man. The heart of, you know, conservatism, the heart of libertarianism really does, like, it's a river, it flows like the Mississippi right through Missouri.
And now I will not pry too much, but I do know that it obviously impacted your life, but it's a traumatic experience. How old are you when your mother dies?
So I think she actually passed away when I had just turned 16, but there was a year and a half long process, and it was tainted, to use a word, by a pharmacist who diluted her chemotherapy drugs. And some people know the story about Kansas City in the 1990s, where this sort of evil, villainous pharmacist was skimming off the top and giving almost no medication to some of these patients, many cancer patients. And there was a class action lawsuit, and my mother was a recipient of some of those medications. And at 15, 16, you know, pioneers men were, you know, you were a man at that point when you lived out in the open prairie. So to some extent, that really is like, now you're a man, son. You got to get out there and make your way in the world, because you realize sort of life can be cruel and life can be short. So I guess I struck out for the big lights in the big city and moved between New York and DC for several years, working in, you know, I started out working in, you know, television, but on the entertainment side of things. And I didn't know Judge Napolitano or Ron Paul yet, but I got a job in politics in 2008 and worked in Washington, D.C. to try and support Ron Paul. And I joined the Libertarian Party then in 2008 and was top activist. They promoted me and did everything I could to just try and advance liberty using all the skills that I had, you know, audio, visual skills. And I raised money for Ron Paul and for people that I really believe in, and started my own projects to try and advance, you know, Second Amendment rights, really the Constitution, you know, anything that I can promote freedom. And I try and promote other people and promote their work and try and help them to be more. If I see someone who's really talented, oftentimes more talented than I am, I kind of act as a producer in some sense to try and lift other people's careers up who I know believe in similar things. And, you know, I kind of do that now in a bit bigger way with my podcasting network. And I get to talk to people like yourself for a living, and just had my first child on a personal level. My beautiful. Smoking hot redheaded libertarian wife Stephanie gave me a beautiful little libertarian redheaded girl, which I'm just so thrilled about. And you know, every minute that I spend with her, she's a month old, has been an absolute delight and a joy. And you know, watching her grow, and every single day it's really fast, even in the beginning. So
well, especially in the beginning, the transition from the black tarsh poo into the, you know, the milky
Iconium.
And then when they start eating actual food and meat, it goes to the next level. I won't push or pry too much, but your mom passes. You don't find out about the skimming of the top of the medication for a little while, I presume, right?
Takes 4 or 5 years. There's a really good documentary on it by actually CNBC, when they used to do really good journalism. It was called it was something capitalist greed, American Greed. And they featured Robert Courtney, who I believe was actually just released like this year or last year from federal prison, and managed to get paroled and is now out and probably, I think, in a halfway house. So yeah, I didn't find out until 4 or 5 years later. But the pain of losing your mother in itself is one thing. The second blow is big, but there's a numbness that you feel. You've built up a shell, you've built up a shield to the evils of the world. And when you're a man, nobody gives a shit how you feel. You want to cry about stuff, nobody cares. I remember I was on a ladder when I came home. It was one of the times I started coming home and there was no one home, right? My dad was out working, and I won't say latchkey kid, but pretty much, you know, for a period, maybe a couple of years. You come home and the door's locked and you can't get in the house, and there's a entryway up on the second floor and maybe it's unlocked. So I get a ladder, I climb up, I fall off onto the concrete pad, and I scream bloody murder, and I'm afraid I broke something. And I realize there's no one around. I'm out on a farm. There's no one knows. If my mother were here, I would have screamed mom and said, she wasn't there. And then you say to yourself, you know, time to toughen up, dude. Like, you're going to have to learn how to take care of yourself. There's not always going to be somebody who's there to pamper you or what have you. But at the end of the day, I think we all know that like we are truly alone. When the chips are down, there might be a few people who will be with you, right? If you're lucky enough to find a soulmate to marry or a really good friend, which is even harder and harder to find these days and rare to find these days. But at that age, I had realized and decided that you have to be a man and you have to just roll with the punches in life and smile through the pain and the troubles and the sorrows so that you can get the things accomplished that you need to accomplish as a man. If you ever want to be a provider or a man of consequence or, perhaps hold any valor or merit, you've got to make your way in the world.
This will be the last question, I promise, on this subject.
It's fine.
You get five years out, you discover that there is potentially, not potentially, but rather there's a person that you can attribute a lot of your suffering to. Do you harbor resentment and like the guy?
Oh yeah, yeah.
No, like
yes, I'm human, right? Yeah, to forgiveness is divine, right? But I don't operate on the kind of typical Judeo-Christian principles when it comes to things like forgiveness that the average conservative or libertarian American might. I harbor a lot of resentment towards that man. I think what's holding me back from tracking him down and hunting him down is the simple consequences that this government would inflict upon me should I decide to enact my own form of civil, vigilante justice. I think anyone
or some might say natural law or natural justice. And I'm not encouraging it at whatsoever.
No. But I mean, like I've always just wanted 10 minutes in the cell alone with him. That's all I need, and to satisfy my wants and needs. And I'm not saying that that's just, I'm not saying that it's right, but that on a visceral level, that's how you feel about something like that when you realize someone took something so precious away from you and
for money.
I see family members who love one another, ostensibly suing one another over estates and fighting. And I'm like, they don't realize just how, that's all you really have, right? Because again, when the chips are down, I've had lost friends, stabbed in the back, ex-lovers who despise me and would still want, curse my name. Like, what was that? Was it the 50 Cent song, Donald Trump? Like, many men wish death on me. I try not to make too many enemies, but when I do, I make them deliberately. But that is a life well lived. Again, Fry, if you haven't made enemies, you haven't lived, right? You have to, if you don't take a stand in this world and risk offending, what was it Thomas Paine said, right? He who dares not offend cannot be honest. Right. So,
I've never heard that one, but I've heard he who dares nothing need hope for nothing. And who said, judge me by the enemies I've made. No, it's very, very, I mean, it's formative. I mean, that will shape a person for the rest of their lives, obviously. By the way, you're 43 years old. Are you using a filter that makes you look younger?
No.
Dude, nice. Well, no. Whatever you're doing is working.
Hey, man, people ask me my secret because it's like, my hair is thinning and it's kind of gray and all that kind of stuff, but my face is really youthful. And I just attribute it to martial arts, man. I eat somewhat good, but like I still enjoy a good ribeye, and like I'll drink a soda every once in a while. Shoot, dude, every once in a while I'll go to McDonald's. I cheat, but mostly I try to get good protein and fiber and eat healthy. Martial arts, man. I think that there's stress when you are relieving stress. Stress will age you. My colleagues and some of that, they're from the stress and alcohol and cigarettes. That's what makes people look old.
See, I got a couple of, I don't have a couple. I have one vice, which I know probably is consuming more alcohol than the Surgeon General recommends.
I love alcohol. Love it.
And then I've given up on the Red Bulls, but I got now 4 in the fridge that I've got to drink at some point. And no, the stress, there's no question. Like when I started getting stressed at the woes of the world, that's when I developed some gray hairs and whatnot. But exercise is the ultimate cure.
You got to have a healthy attitude. You have to have a healthy attitude in order to have a healthy body. And then when you have a healthy body, you'll have a healthy mind. People separate the mind from the body so often, but it's just not true. Your behavioral expectations, you can expect that your behavior will improve, that your performance will improve. You're going to have a better sex life and relationship with your partner, therefore, right? If you're not fat and spongy and sitting on the couch too much. Martial arts was a huge transition. I would say joining martial arts was as big in forming me as losing my mother in such a painful way. but in an opposite way, in a sort of, 1980s montage, Jean-Claude Van Damme, like rising up back on the street. It's taken me 20 years to get to where I'm at right now, but there's an inner strength, physical strength, when you feel confident in your physical body, but also you can't understand other people's bodies in space as well, right? How to relate to them. Like, you can tell how someone takes care of their body. You can see whether they're confident with their shoulders back. Martial arts is that thing that teaches you a sort of, would you say kinesthetic intelligence, perhaps?
Yeah, well, I mean, Rogan just talks about it in terms of understanding the movements and not the consequences, but rather like the interplay, the dance of human bodies. And you see things that if you don't do martial arts, you don't know how those.
Yeah, it's like the Matrix. It's like the Matrix. You see the green lines all of a sudden, and you're like, I know Kung Fu. Right? Keanu Reeves.
What are you up to now? Are you up to a black belt?
So I have never received a formal black belt orientation process because I've moved to different cities. Every 2-3 years, I had to move cities and transition to new schools. Continuously, I've done 20 years, nearly unbroken, of Japanese karate styles. And I've also spent a lot of time doing homework outside of class. And because I live out in the woods, I can't find anybody to do karate. There's like an American karate school where they do like, American, like not McDojo. I won't say that about my local guy, but it's not a rigorous formalized curriculum. So I've just created my own, and I have my own school here in Jefferson City. And some people join me sometimes for it. I've taught my wife when COVID came in, we needed a way to work out. And I was like, well, I've learned, real extensive Japanese karate for 20 years. Would you like to learn? And she's like, yeah, sure. So we've built our own little dojo. Like, it's very Japanese. We went to Japan last year. I got to train in Japan with some masters, which was freaking amazing. Bucket list kind of a thing, right? In Osaka. I don't know. Have you ever been to Japan by any chance? I don't know if you're
definitely on my list of
bucket
list items.
Yeah, me drinky sake a long time, and I ate a lot of Kobe beef, the real Kobe. It was amazing. So cannot recommend enough. But that definitely was a formative. Martial arts has been a formative event in my life, similar to how my mother when she passed away, but in a positive aspect, because it has informed my politics, my interpersonal relationships with people. It gives me it's a community. It can be a cult. And watch out for that kind of stuff. I've always been very averse to, as soon as I get cult vibes on things, I've been around a few cults at a few points in my time in my life, and you kind of flirt with them, and it's sometimes be very attractive, but I've always been kind of like firmly outside of any cult that would have any group that would have me. I wouldn't join as a member. But
now this, Austin, this wasn't part of the segue, but it's going to work very well. If I may do our second sponsor, I wanted to do it before you got on, but I was running a little late.
Chuck Norris.
Bison and broccoli. Well, the second sponsor of the day. I don't know if anybody's in. Hold on, let me bring up the screen because I got it on the backdrop. Talking about being a man and being naked. Let's be honest, people. The world is getting pretty soft, but that doesn't mean you have to. Naked organs is like packing pure, unapologetic masculinity into a capsule loaded with nutrient-rich bison organs. Everybody's watching now has seen me. I cooked bison balls, Austin, once upon a time. This is a much better way to get it. It doesn't. Bison balls, no tasty good. Me likey. We're talking vitamin B12 to keep you energized, vitamin D for strength, Hem iron to stay solid, and CoQ10 to keep you sharp. No fluff, no fillers, just raw primal power designed to keep you at your peak. And it's bison. They're not raised on some cushy farms. They're out there in the wild, surviving harsh conditions where that only the toughest survive. That's the kind of strength, endurance, and resilience you're getting. Pure nutrients and boosted energy, speed up recovery, and keep your testosterone levels right where they need to be. If you're tired of products loaded with junk that do nothing for you, this one, by the way, this is a Rumble product, so check them out. They're amazing. BeNaked.com, promo code VIVA, 15% off to start feeling the difference. It's like channeling bison strength without having to wrestle one yourself. If you're not feeling the difference, send it back for a refund. No questions asked. And you go to, it's BeNaked.com/Viva, and you're supporting the parallel economy that we absolutely need to support. And we're going to get into this when we talk about some shit today. Austin, did you see that eBay took my BeNaked.com/Viva, the Rumble partner? The stuff is amazing. I have it. My wife actually takes it, although I don't know if women are supposed to be taking bison ball supplement. It's amazing. Link is in the description. Austin, did you see, like, this happened right before going live, and that's not why we were late. I was just enraged. Did you see that eBay took down my freaking lectern? I'm trying to auction this. You know the lectern guy, the guy in the famous.
Yeah, of course. January 6th.
So I've had him on. We've become actually good friends. It's fantastic. He made these little replicas.
They took it down. eBay's woke.
And
eBay's
I
woke.
didn't mean little as in demeaning. I mean, it's a miniature replica. He gave me one, and then he gave me another one, said auction off the other one. I put it on eBay.
No.
Austin, you won't believe. Let me see. Did I not yet? Where we're oh my effing goodness. Look at this. Austin, the reason they told it didn't follow our disaster and tragedy policy listing or items that portray, glorify, or attempt to profit from human tragedy or suffering. I went just for the sake of it. Austin, that's the lectern. They're selling Mein Kampf on eBay, which I don't think they should not be selling. And they're also selling the Human Centipede, which I haven't seen. Can you believe the? Oh, we're 8 minutes in and it's my show. Can you believe the fucking world that we're living in? I'm trying not to swear. I'm trying not to go crazy. It's fascist technocracy.
It's a lot of fun. Here's the thing. It's funny, right? It's a good thing it's funny, because if it wasn't funny, it would just be absolutely terrifying, the dystopia that they want to take us into, because let's be honest, they hate us and they want us dead. They want us dead, but if we can't be dead, they'll enslave us, and they'll allow us to live as long as we are their slaves. I don't know if you saw the clip that I sent you of Tim Walz.
You want to bring it up? Or
yeah,
I can bring it up too.
Yeah, go ahead. Pull it up. This is our next Vice President of the United States.
Potential. My only concern with these clips is that they're very
short, very short.
They're
short contacts. Yes, but
hold on a second. Let me get it. He sent it to me by email.
I did. Do you just want to narrate it, or?
Well, he says, no, I want to get it because I don't want anyone. I don't want anyone accusing me. And now Austin Petersen, where he sent it right here. Tim Walz.
An interesting clip. Yes.
And let me just make sure my DMs are not open. So here, check this out. It's a joke. There will be no further context that can.
It's not a joke. I mean, the UK, they want to extradite us to the UK.
Here, check this out.
I think we need to push back on this. There's no guarantee to free speech on misinformation or hate speech, and especially around our democracy.
There's no free speech on misinformation, hate speech. Look,
it's our democracy.
Well, no,
it's our democracy.
Austin, you know what you following what's going on in Canada. I mean, we've had hate speech laws for a decade. It's effing nuts. Anything that is susceptible of fomenting. What's the word? I'll get the exact quote. This is the guy that they will be signing off the extradition papers to that wig-headed judge in the UK for being told to go F themselves. What is the world coming to, and what do we do about it?
Canada, first of all, needs to separate entirely from the United Kingdom. It needs to be, and you need to have a peaceful revolution, and you need to remove the Queen from your exchequer. Is that her?
I don't know. But
the king. It's the king.
It's the king now because the Queen died. So now we've
right.
It's
right. You guys you all need independence. And Canada, I could prescribe. I prescribe independence for Canada. For the United States, the sad thing is that we're in something of a holding pattern when it comes to the right. Because if you look at the coalitions, if you look at RFK Jr. and Elon Musk and the people who are supporting Donald Trump, I mean, we have a whole on our right, we have a whole flank of angry, former Ron DeSantis supporters in the primary who haven't forgiven Donald Trump for beating Ron DeSantis in the primary. And then rather than get on board, they're currently trying to deep six and torpedo Donald Trump. And these are conservatives, many of them. Well, you got David French, who's out there saying that he's voting for Kamala Harris.
French is, I don't believe I don't believe they're conservatives. I believe that they are paid. I genuinely believe that they are actually paid. Like the Frenches of the world. Who's the other one there? There's another one.
Joe Walsh.
But the question is this. I notice a bit of it with the libertarians, but less so. The DeSantis crowd online were insufferable in terms of not the bitterness, but the childness of defeat. And I took some flack because I moved to Florida. I like Governor DeSantis.
Oh, yes.
But I didn't think he should be the candidate. And I think they need to stop everything that they're doing. It's so bad that I actually believe that they might be Democrats in disguise, deliberately trying to sabotage.
Some of them are. I absolutely believe this, because I'm seeing these bot accounts that are like DeSantis accounts, and they're going in there and they're anonymous and they're whipping up and signal boosting these conservatives who are never Trumpers, came through that primary. And of course, it makes an obvious play. That's exactly what you want to do, is to exacerbate the problems between the factions of the Republican Party. But it's not Ronald Reagan's three-legged stool anymore. Like, one of the things that the populists are correct is that we can't just do warmed over Reaganism like we had in the 80s. That coalition doesn't exist anymore. Donald Trump defeated the neocons. Many of them became never Trumpers, Jennifer Rubin and others, the people who want endless war. Those people want to go back over to the Democratic Party where they came from. The Skip Jackson Democrats who joined the Republican Party as mugged by reality Bill Kristol types. Like, these are people who they're returning back to the Democratic Party where they came from, but it's not the George Bush Republican Party anymore. And it's Trump's party for now, but everybody's sort of looking at what the handoff will be. People are like, well, it must be JD Vance, heir apparent. But listen, if they primary Donald Trump as hard as they did this time, and he's the owner of the party, just think what they'll do if JD Vance runs again. I'm not even sure that he really is the heir apparent to MAGA. There's a lot of people who might take that crown. There's a lot of pretenders to that crown, and the future direction of the Republican Party is not set yet, which is why me, learning from the Democrats, sees in this crisis an opportunity. And therefore, what I hope we can do is to get more real freedom lovers in the Republican Party voting Trump now, with the hope that in the future we get more Vivek Ramaswamis, right? We get more people who think like Javier Milei. Because if there's anybody in the world stage that, for me, like, one-to-one, I got you, bro, where am I thinking? It's where Javier Milei is, as an Austrian economist, the most popular and powerful libertarian in the world, and even he coalitions with Donald Trump. So that's what I want to shape. I want to make America afuera again.
Afuera.
Afuera.
The video was fantastic.
Yeah.
But this is what I'm sort of realizing now. A lot of these terms like Reaganism, conservatism, or Reaganism politics, Bushyite or Bushy politics. When I look back, and anybody who was a Bush supporter, now I sort of deem to be part of the Uni Party, with having more in common with the Democrats than with Trump. And I don't know who the relics of that are on the political sphere as much as people who have been immersed in American politics their entire life. When people say like it's not the Bush Republican Party, it's true. It is now Trump more than a conservative party. But hypothetically, like, what happened? Does it ever revert?
Conservatives are mad. I mean, if you think about it, you can see this rage manifest in their anger at Donald Trump, specifically because of the abortion plank. And I'm pro-life, but right now there is this huge fight with the really strong evangelical, fundamentalist, right-wing Republican, Bible-beaten conservatives, and they don't like this what they see as a violation of principle when it comes to pro-life principles in the Republican Party. It's huge what Donald Trump did with that. I mean, unbelievable. He just flat out says, hey, we got to get elected. I'm pro-life, but we got to get elected. It's kind of like, here's the thing. Nobody had the balls to ever say something like that as a Republican, or do something like that to pro-lifers. And the gay people, Melania for Trump, raising money for the log cabin Republicans. It's not the Reagan Republican Party anymore.
Explain the evangelical issue. Like, now I understand pro-life in terms of at conception, and that's the belief. What is it about? Why wouldn't pro-life states accept the Dobbs decision and say, okay, fine, it's not going to be a federal issue. If we want to implement what we believe is the proper procedure, we'll do it at the state level. Why not be satisfied enough with that?
Because you're never satisfied with what you got, and the grass is always greener on the other side. A lot of conservatives are now saying they have buyer's remorse with Dobbs because, for example, right here in Missouri, they put it on the ballot, and we have very lax rules when it comes to getting something on the ballot. That's how we legalized marijuana here in the state of Missouri. I believe in that. That's for freedom. But now they're about to legalize abortion in Missouri constitutionally for all time, meaning, and when you put something in the Constitution in the state of Missouri, the legislators can't get something like that out. They can't just vote something like that down. It takes another constitutional amendment to overturn the constitutional amendment. So we are in danger when it comes to pro-life in Missouri. This could flip this state, and it could also. It's absolutely going to bring a lot more Democratic voters out this fall. If you look at the issues which the Democrats, especially female voters, are going to the polls for this fall, the Democrats all are voting to kill babies. Abortion is their number one issue. That's the thing they care about. That's why they dressed up as abortion pills at the DNC, and Trump has made a shrewd political move.
Well, but even forget the political move. This is why they bought in. I say they, as in the left, has bought into the lie that there'll be a nationwide abortion ban, despite the Dobbs decision, which literally says the exact opposite. I don't understand how this abortion issue became an election issue, nor do I even understand how anybody thinks the election is going to resolve it, given that it's a state right issue. So how is a federal election going to resolve the abortion issue that's been made the issue of the time by the left?
Not everyone is a constitutional originalist necessarily, like Scalia or perhaps Clarence Thomas. There are ends justify the means activists, libertarians, and Republicans and conservatives who say that what matters is the process, but what matters is the outcome. And it can be hard to argue against something like that when, for example, one of the overriding actions by the federal government was civil rights in the South to overturn Jim Crow. My friend and libertarian legal scholar, Judge Andrew Napolitano, suggests that the federal government plays its proper role in protecting the constitutional rights of American citizens. We have this whole, and you're a lawyer, I don't have to explain to you the idea of incorporating the Bill of Rights into the states. And so many of these states will latch on to this incorporation that many conservatives and libertarians, pushed for, via the 14th Amendment. And so the states are going to take these actions like this. The process is really not, I think, to many people what's important. We do have some people who look at the Constitution almost biblically, right? And they say that, it's textual, right? I'm a textualist. It's that statement. There's many legal theories that disagree with that, and originalism, and they sort of go together, but there's some differences between the two, right, in the Venn diagram. So I guess when you're looking at something like this, why wouldn't they be glad that it was a state-based thing? The states are doing it because the process is not what's as important as the outcome. The left certainly fights like that. The left certainly believes in that. They don't care about the law. They don't care about the Constitution. They don't care about the processes. All they care about is the outcome that they desire, and they can change their outcome. They can change the outcome they desire in like 24 to 48 hours. It's like just like they hated Kamala. The left can be programmed. It's harder to get conservatives and libertarians to sort of like ease into new legal areas of thought, but it's the mark of an educated mind, right, to entertain an idea without necessarily accepting it. But still, we can't be programmed as easily as the left to just like move in a different direction. It gives our armies, substantial strengths and weaknesses, pros and cons on both sides.
What are the current laws in Missouri? I'm trying to Google it as we're talking. It says it's very strict, but
Yes.
What is the proposed amendment now?
It is outlawed entirely. At the moment, the Planned Parenthood is not allowed to operate within the bounds of Missouri. They might have a center here, but they do not do abortions there.
So hypothetically, or the morning after pill, does that qualify as abortion medication?
No, that is an area debate, but at the moment you can still receive a prescription for that. And of course you can always get black market stuff any way you want. Anyway.
Right. And so that's to say then any abortion, what's what I'm looking for? Elective abortion, even before 10 weeks is
outlawed in the state of Missouri. Yeah, but it will not be. It will be the complete opposite. It'll be completely permissible in any sense, in any way, if the constitutional amendment crosses. And that means, again, when it's in the Missouri Constitution, it does not just go away with like a little letter writing campaign or call your congressman. That is not how something like that gets overturned. It is much harder to take something out of the Constitution than it is to put something in. It's a bit of a flaw of the Missouri Constitution.
And the extent of the amendment is to allow it unconditionally, or what would be the restrictions?
Yeah, no, there no restrictions placed. At least the way we understand it is it could be interpreted, and there will be, of course, lawsuits, and the conservatives, and there's a supermajority here. But trust me, just like conservative supermajorities, all they do is make Democrats run as moderate Republicans. So it's not as nice to live in a one party state as you might think. As a matter of fact, there is something to like having someone opposing you and maybe having like a good strong team. It makes you better, to be honest. But Missouri suffers from our supermajority in that sense. So there will be many moderate Democrats or who are Republicans, or with an R after their name, who will likely scuttle any attempt to try and overturn it if it does happen. So
let me see this. Is this it? The Amendment 3, the right
Yes.
to reproductive initiative, is on the ballot as initiated constitutional
Correct.
amendment. Okay. A yes vote supports amending Missouri Constitution to provide the right for reproductive freedom, which is defined as, quote, the right to make and carry out decisions about all matters relating to reproductive health, including but not limited to parental care, childbirth, abortion care. It's weird. Miscarriage care, et cetera, and providing that the state legislature may enact laws that regulate abortion after fetal viability, which is so. Wow. So this would say then they can enact a law that would allow for abortion after fetal viability, which would be past, I don't know what's that now, 20 weeks, which is defined as the initiative is in good faith judgment, treating healthcare professional and based on particular facts of the case, yada, yada, yada. A no vote means, this is amazing, amending a no vote opposes the amendment. Okay. Wow. That's so I'm a schnook. Explain how that works. That's going to be on the ballot at election time. Like when you go to vote, you're going to have this amendment on the same ballot form that goes for president and whoever else is running.
Yeah, and it'll, like I said, tactically it's going to bring out more Democrats to vote, but it could be disastrous for pro-lifers here in the state of Missouri. But the Missouri Republican Party is very pro-Trump, and while there were many who were upset about Donald Trump's new Republican Party platform on the national level, most Missouri Republicans supported it, and because they support Trump. And what's interesting is conservative activists, they're getting rolled in some ways. They're able to get their agenda across in like regional conventions. I acted as a delegate this year for Donald Trump. I was at my regional convention. I was at my state convention. And the dynamics are such that the grassroots of the Republican Party, at least within the bounds of Missouri, is active enough to knock out some establishment figureheads, to take over prominent committee positions, right? But not necessarily to really take the top spots or the reins, or to win the statewide offices here in the state of Missouri that would bring them the kind of victories. Without getting too deep in the weeds of Missouri politics, we had a very, very, very conservative senator who ran for governor here in Missouri, and he lost. He had all the grassroots behind him. They couldn't get him across. But they can overturn regional conventions. And at the state convention, our grassroots conservatives really kind of ran the show. But I think that the devotion to and for Trump, despite what the proposals were when it came to abortion, Missouri kind of goes its own way anyway, and the state parties go their own way anyway. I think on a national level, what Trump has done is moderated the Republican Party to an electability status that might be electoral. If you're going to run for office, that might be the platform that you have to run on to win. But that's also a separate question of what's right, what's true, and that's, again, these are practical matters versus tactical matters versus God's honest truth and the morality of the subject. You know what I'm saying?
I'm going to ask the question at the risk of sounding totally stupid. The constitutional amendment is on the ballot. It's not tied to any other vote on the ballot. So in theory, someone can come and vote for Trump, but vote for that constitutional amendment. And the amendment can pass regardless of any other issue on that ballot.
Yeah, and you would think Missouri, will be a very conservative red state. You would think, it's just going to get knocked off the ballot. No, the Missouri is a complicated history and has long been a Democrat state. And during the Civil War, there was the Missouri Compromise, and the racist Civil War segregationist Dixie Democrats who ran Missouri since the Civil War until the 1970s or 80s, when Republicans started to take the state away. There were statewide elected Democrats in the highest offices until just recently, because Senator Hawley took Claire McCaskill, the Democrat, out. And there's still an old conservative Democrat, blue collar. It very much is that populist movement, which honestly, the populist movements, there's a lot of overlap between left populists and right populists.
Well, we're seeing it now with the RFK sort of alliance.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And RFK is pro-choice. RFK is, he's not a conservative when it comes to, abortion or things like that. He's an old school Democrat, but he's, Kennedys are for abortions.
I make
they need him.
I make the decision that, being pro-choice, and to put it in, I know people will not accept the label, that some people could be begrudgingly pro-choice up to a certain point. I've mentioned this on the show, but in Canada, it's one of the only, I think it's the only country in the world that has absolutely no criminal prohibitions on abortion at any stage of the pregnancy, but you'll never find a doctor to do it after a certain point, regardless. And so I think most people who might even fall into the pro-choice category would say, I'm pro-choice up until brain activity, up until heartbeat, barring.
Where's the maternal instinct, right? Where's the paternal instinct? I guess here's a good question for you. Does the problem weed itself out? They were getting vasectomies at the Democratic National Convention, aborting babies in a van. Can you imagine what type of a dude you'd have to be to go get Dr. Giggles and his giggle and go take some giggle gas from Dr. Giggles and go to a van and have him snip your nuts? I mean, come on.
I'm in Florida. I saw the red bus van, so I go and gave blood, and then it's a mobile bus. I gave blood, and after it's like, I'm on it, and I haven't yet stuck the needle in my arm. I'm like, what the hell is this? Is this a real thing? And I look it up, and it's totally legit. But going into a bus to give blood, one thing. Going in to have, and they say it's like an in and out procedure. They just go, they tug and they snip, and you ejaculate blood after for a couple of days. Anyway, suffice to say, I'm not doing it. I've had 2 testicular torsions. Nobody's messing around with that. But self eliminating is an interesting way. And some people might say
they're doing it. I don't want them to kill their babies, but they're killing their babies, and we're having babies, and we're going to have more babies. I'm going to have more babies. I don't know if you're going to have more babies. I'm definitely going to have at least 1 more baby, maybe 2 more if I can, right? We're a little older on that spectrum, but babies are awesome. I've always been a natalist, right? I don't come at life from like the perspective of divine intervention. Right? I consider myself something of a materialist of the material world, but I find a beauty and a fascination and some sort of intrinsic compulsion to honor my ancestors and to bring forth life to continue this unbroken chain of life and this gift and miracle of life. How can you say to your parents, your grandparents, how can you look your ancestors in the face? And I know that our opponents don't, the anti-natalists don't. They live in the here, the now. They're not thinking about what's happening after, and they're certainly not thinking about what came before them. But maybe we win this as a war of attrition. And maybe in the long run, we win this.
Not to be too black pill, but no, because the people who are implementing these policies and not reproducing are then saying, well, we're not reproducing, so open the borders and we'll satisfy that demographic of voters with whomever we allow to invade the country.
Yeah.
That's it. So that's wild. So then that risks passing in Missouri that'll be the same day as the election or the same ballot. So November 5th, you could have basically. It'll be up to the legislature to say whether or not you can have post.
You're really trying to black pill me today. You're really not going to happen. We're going to fight it. We're going to win. We're going to stop it. We're going to stop it on the ballot.
This is where I think the issue is. I think even most people who consider themselves pro-choice would say, no. Like I'll agree. It's a necessary evil to tolerate. In that, if you say as of conception, there's no rule, no exception, no nothing. People are going to do terrible things out of necessity. I think you can get most people to say, the potential to be a human when it has brain waves, when it has a heartbeat, when it is viable. There's spots in there where people can probably agree and even agree that it's too far. When you hold too hard of a line, then you get a bill that passes like this that is even beyond what most people would feel comfortable with, even if they consider themselves pro-choice. And so if you're sort of being punished for intransigence in terms of not saying, okay, fine, let's legislate up to 10 weeks or 6 weeks, if you think that's reasonable, and compromise to some extent to win the broader battle, because you're never going to convince the majority that as of the moment you get pregnant, conception, by accident or for whatever the circumstances, you're done for. You'll never get the majority of people to accept that. And so you hold on principle, but then you lose on policy.
I get it. I do think science, here's a white pill. I'm coming back at you with some more white pills. But I do think science is going to help solve these problems for us. More and more fetus is viable farther and farther back towards conception. And so I know that especially strong religious and Orthodox types don't like this concept, but the artificial womb is there. So it used to be the case that a libertarian professor by the name of Dr. Walter Block would be derided and he would be laughed at for his theory that he posited about abortion, which is a concept that he called evictionism. And I'll admit the first time I hear it, It sounded weird. It sounded kind of bonkers, right? There's my disgust. Maybe I'm a little more conservative, right? So I felt this concept of disgust. You can, yes, at some point it'll be viable. Yes, you can evacuate the child, but you have no right to murder it. You can't kill the child. You can evict it if you absolutely positively must get this child, this human being, out of you, and you're going to kill the child. Okay, right? Like, put the knife down, lady. Put the hanger down. Okay, but you cannot murder the baby. You can't take a pair of scissors and stick it in the back of its skull and suck its brain out. Right?
That's where that was. Not to get back to the black pill. That was one of the
darkest.
Well, no, that was the darkest revelation I ever truly understood the depths of evil, where regardless of how you feel about abortion and whether or not, up to 6 weeks, 10 weeks, once you realize that there's a black market for the parts, once you realize that there's a black market with an increased price for the later the fetus, and then if you get into the really dark realm of whether or not it's still alive when it's then you realize it's
they're blood drinkers and vampires. Yes, there's a black market for it because there's creepy perverts, probably billionaire weirdo Epstein types out there who are like the evil supervillains of the world. It's like that TV show on Amazon Prime, The Boys, right, where like they present themselves to the world as superheroes, but like also in that one Silicon Valley thing, they're sitting there with like a 14-year-old kid and they're like having blood transferred over to him and they think it's going to work, but really it doesn't work scientifically. So they, just like how, many Chinese herbalists buy the powder of the horn of a rhinoceros. Yep. And they think that it's going to give them a longer life or they better sex life.
Ground up penis of the of the lion. No, right. It's even worse. The Epstein, one of the Epstein theories, per Alex Jones, and dude's been more right than wrong, is that they were trying to collect the stem cells and whatever material from aborted fetuses.
Right.
The even darker one. Forget the black market, people drinking blood. The reality from a scientific perspective, the experiments you can do on a still alive aborted fetus, the scientific value. It's going back to the human centipede again.
It's like Unit 431 from Japan when they did the vivisections on the live patients and Joseph Mengele. This people don't even know this stuff happened.
Yeah,
they don't know that it happens. And they what it is. People, when they are confronted with such awful tragedy, right? They may initially, the first time they hear it, right, but it quickly, disappears and fades away in their life.
That was then. Nobody would do that anymore. That we've evolved since then. I
strongly suspect that the first time that you and I read and heard stories like that it burned itself into our memories and imprinted on us, so that it's kind of the thing that we think about more on a weekly basis rather than like a once you heard it in high school kind of a thing, right? These atrocities, and because if you're on the alert. If you're on the alert for tyranny, if you're like me and I imagine yourself, if you're always snooping around for the next threat to your freedoms, you're going to have that sort of that radar out for the next person who wants to put their boot on your throat.
Let me read. We're going to end this on YouTube because let's bring it over to Rumble. But there's two chats in here from YouTube before we get there. Austin and I were part of the Libertarian Party in DC. Stand-up guy. We were also very proud of him and his accomplishments. Congrats on the new baby, Jamie Raj. Yeah, and then we got that was from sorry, I should read the name, Sushioda. Then Mr. E. Austin contributed greatly to my political awakening way back during the Gary Bake the Cake Johnson days. Glad to see this collaboration. Hope he runs for office again one day, dude. Well, and let me bring up the two that I have up in Rumble here. I think I see something here.
And real quick, let me say one thing before you go to just YouTube, guys. If you're on, please follow me on Rumble at AP4Liberty. They're doing amazing things for free speech. Chris Pavlovsky has gigantic balls. And I'm really proud when I'm to be a part of this in a small way. And then let me also say thank you and your listeners over there on the channel, because they all were hitting me up and we're really excited to hear us talk.
Wow, it's phenomenal.
And let's be real. Let's get real here. You got 1 billion fans and I've got like a small army, right? But thank you for this opportunity. First of
all, the crowd watching on YouTube is minuscule. It's on Rumble in any event. Did I bring this up here? Oh, yeah, we do see it. Okay. But I'm going to put all the links everywhere so that people can find you after this. And I think people are going to subscribe to your newsletter because they like the way you think. Finboy Slick says, Austin said he applied to audiovisual skills to helping Ron Paul get elected. I'm wondering if he had anything to do with the Amy Allen Ron Paul anthem in 2008. I don't know what that is.
Ron Paul, save our constitutional rights. Ron Paul, start a revolution. Bring back the something constitution. Yeah, I could probably still sing it if I think about it, but that's old school. That was when I first got started in political activism, was inspired by Ron Paul. Dr. Ron Paul cured my apathy. And I've had a hell of an adventure in liberty. Not many people get to have experienced the highs, the lows, this roller coaster ride that I've been on since 2008 and where I'm at today. So it's a hell of an exciting adventure, and I'm glad that I get, to tell it, and a little bit of my personal stuff too. It's very kind of you to ask.
No, I would dig into it for a lot longer, but
Sure.
Another time, and we'll meet up one day. I've never been to Missouri, and I would love.
I'll definitely come to Florida, and I'll bring my family.
Oh, dude, anytime. I got 3 kids. We're not having any more because my wife is now 40.
Are you in Sarasota?
I'm in the Boca area.
Oh, okay. I've got a good friend in Boca. You don't happen to scuba dive by chance, do you?
I do not. I have an absolute morbid fear of scuba.
I was gonna say, you should come join my friends, and we from Boca Raton. We like to go scuba. Okay,
well, text me when you're. Well, we're not ending this now. I'm just going to end it on YouTube. Ending on YouTube. The link is in Rumble, and I'll see you guys over there. Remove. Is that how I do it? Yeah, done. Okay, boom. Yeah. Speaking of, I don't want to say big Chris's big balls. I'm going to. I noticed that he's a very polite Canadian, as I used to be. Now I swear a whole hell of a lot more. But as the CEO of a publicly traded company, you can't tell people to go fuck themselves as often as you might like. But
Elon Musk did, but he's got Elon Musk money.
But he only said it once. He doesn't say it, although he told the EU guy to take a step back and go F his face. That was from the. Oh God, my brother sent that to me to try to sensitize to my father the fact that I swear a little bit on Twitter. And he says, my oldest brother, he's second oldest. He's a very, very prim and proper person. He says, Dad, you see, this is the rhetoric. This is the tone on Twitter, so it's not so bad to swear. But although
he pulled out of France, Chris pulled out of France, the whole freaking side out of France. I mean, balls. He's got balls.
Well, let me bring up. It's the balls. That's balls. There's no question. Pulling out of Brazil. I'm sure they pulled out of Brazil as well. But the balls comes where he started. When he started calling out by name, Dunkin' Donuts, calling out by name. Who was the other one that refused? And showing that's when you can be polite, you can be impolite. That's ballsy. And when he just told Macron today, basically called Macron a liar. Here, hold on, is it here? Am I going to see it in the replies? I'll pull it up afterwards. But if you haven't seen it, people, you and I have seen this, Austin. Macron, in respect of the arrest of Pavel Durov, says, I've seen false information regarding France following the arrest of Pavel Durov. France is deeply committed to freedom of expression and communication, to innovation, and to the spirit of entrepreneurship. It's just endless bullshit. Pavlovsky comes out and says, you guys are not pro free speech at all. You told us to censor, and we had to pull out of your tyrannical country. What the hell are we witnessing, Austin, in terms of I call it like global fascism or global communism, but you see how it spreads, that everybody's adopting it for their own good. And you have people in the States, there's people who follow Tim No Balls Walls saying, there's no freedom of speech.
Yeah. Well, God bless. Listen, you were talking about the parallel economy. I used to go to boring nerd lectures at like the Cato Institute in like 2009 or 10 and listen to people talking about the parallel economy. And this is before Bitcoin storms the world and before Rumble exists and everybody's still on legacy social media, you might even call it, right? And so things have changed a lot from then to now in terms of free speech, and the threats to free speech are greater than they've ever been, but the assets are also greater than they've ever been. And I was also excited to see Rumble launching their cloud services. When we saw what happened to Parler with the underlying architecture of their infrastructure, we knew we needed something that could be cancel proof. And of course, we still have major problems when it comes to the financial institutions and banking, right? The alternative economy will never really be complete. We can't decouple until we can end the Federal Reserve, ultimately, hopefully, right? Audit it, right? Get some control of the monetary system here in the United States, which is what they will give the elites and the evil megalomaniacal baby blood drinkers. they will let everything go. They'll try and keep our, take away our freedoms on absolutely everything, guns, speech, whatever. But it's the banking system they really want more than everything, because they know that if they control the financial system, the monetary system, they can always just pay for buying whatever politician they need later to get whatever law passed. It's the money that they want to control. That's everything. And until we have that, we won't really free speech, guns, they block us from buying guns using financial institutions. That's the problem. It's the financial institution. It's the Federal Reserve. It's the central banks, dummy. Not you, dummy, but like the royal dummy. You know what I mean? Like it's the monetary system.
I've been called worse, and I've been called dummy, and I've deserved it when I've been called dummy. Hold on, here. This is Pavlovsky's response to Emmanuel Macron. When you say you're committed to freedom of expression, you are lying. We have a letter from France that proves it without a doubt. We had to shut down Rumble in France because you have no commitment to freedom of speech. You see, that's the diplomatic way of doing it. And then the humorously undiplomatic way. I don't think I can ever go to France again because it's I hate to call the president of France a lying, gaslighting jackass, but it's like they think we're idiots that we don't remember when Macron, it was July, it was a month ago, suggests blocking social media during riots. This is from Le Monde, where they say the French president has raised the idea of limiting or even cutting off access to social media platforms during episodes of urban violence, a practice until now reserved for authoritarian regimes a month ago. And now they want us to, this lying jackass wants to believe that France believes in free speech after having arrested Pavel Durov. And still, they haven't released the charging documents as far as I know. So he tells us they've seen some disinformation about Pavel, but they don't give us the information. But trust us, we arrested him for all of your safety.
These are the soft men. These are the soft men, like the Trudeaus and others. These are the soft men who are giving us the hard times. Big picture. These are the men who have benefited from the post-World War II boom, the economic boom, all the way up in the 80s and 90s. Many of these people got very, very rich. Some of them even used to be Republicans, right? But now, like for them, party doesn't matter to them at all. And it really shouldn't matter to you completely, entirely, right? We shouldn't be completely captured by, ideologically by a political party per se. But the Justin Trudeau's of the world, the minister of France, this is a sign of how Western civilization maybe not has fallen, but it is certainly in a period of decline, right? And it's a natural event, unfortunately, because of the Keynesian economic, like I was saying, monetary system that we have. The boom and bust cycle is inevitable. Just like empires, they rise, they fall. How long did the Third Reich last? Not very long. Second Reich, okay, lasts a little bit. First Reich, right? There's a natural progression and a waving of civilization. What we're seeing now are the signs, the evidence. Right? These are examples. What you're discussing here. The evidence that the soft men are creating the hard times. The hard times is the inflation. The hard times, you go to the grocery store and, oh my God, your cart's half full, but it's $350, right? When you go, I'm buying infant formula now, and then oh my God, you got to find the best deal on that stuff. It's
not to get you black-pilled or too neurotic, but Barnes and I last night covered the lawsuit where it was Whole Foods selling organic baby food that was actually loaded with heavy metals, arsenic, all this shit, despite being passed off as the healthy choice for babies. It's all that stuff.
Thankfully, the wife and I do a combination of the all-natural boob with the formula, but we had to bulk her up a little bit. But these are economic realities. My wife and I, we're not millionaires, right? We have to make economic decisions on the margins based on what we can afford. And if the Sam's Club $15 less food source is more affordable for our budget versus the $69 Similac or what have you, if we have to make those decisions, and we do probably just a little bit economically better than some of our neighbors, they have to make those decisions. They don't have a choice. They've got to go eat. And the left is so good at framing arguments. They are so good at making things sound better than they really are and appear better than they really are. Although I feel like visually that the left has really lost the plot because of their loss of the power of memes. And as Hollywood,
I would say no loss. They never had it, but
they used to be funny. The left used to be funny. You used to be able to watch leftist comedians. They would listen. If it was the 1970s and Twitter existed, Dan Aykroyd, Bill Murray, John Belushi, these guys who are, I'm ostensibly, I imagine, leftists, right? Not hardcore conservatives. They would be dominating the social networks right now, but that's not what's happening. It's people who are.
You are right. I am old enough to remember when Stephen Colbert was funny. I'm old enough to remember when Jon Stewart was funny. I went to see, who's the guy, the South African guy, young, hosted the Daily Show after.
Oh yes, Trevor Noah.
Trevor Noah. I went to see Trevor Noah. I didn't pay for the ticket. I got an invitation.
Sure.
It was so supremely unfunny that like
yeah.
I'd say I'm old. He used to be. I have a theory that the more you become a liberal or a Democrat, the less funny you become because the more serious you take yourself, and you need to have a little bit of humility.
But that used to be Republicans.
Yep.
That used to be the religious right. So you're old enough to remember the Satanic Panic of the 1980s.
Oh yeah.
1990s.
I'm old. You would the war on the Simpsons.
Oh yeah. Oh my God. I remember my parents would not let me. My mom specifically would not allow me. She was a good Christian woman. She would not let me wear Bart Simpson shirts to school, and everybody wore because they were rude. And he was mean to his teachers, and he played pranks, and he was a bad influence. So my mom wouldn't let me watch him. Right? Maybe that there was something to that, perhaps. But the left has become the puritanical prudes. Right? They've now adopted it for their soulless, godless, immoral, heathen, Marxist, leftist push to move things in a progressive fashion, to have postmodernism and their philosophies and the underpinnings of their philosophies, advance on the field. And the right are now the cultural warriors. I actually think that we're on the upswing. Here's a white pill to throw back into your black face. I do feel that the right is now taking a lot of cultural sway. And I see it sometimes even in places like the UK or in Canada. God, for God's sakes, look what Canada gave us here, right? Viva.
Well, but that's and the Jordan Petersons and
yeah.
I'd not say the freedom-minded Canadians tend to flee if they can because it's literally oppressive up there. But
I got a buddy of mine, Ian Howarth. He's this Jewish, British, now American. Got his passport here. Big free speech fighter. Moved to the United States to take a job in tech, and then realized that his old country was definitely not for him, so he decided to leave his past, renounce it, becoming an American. And I'm like, I love that you're here, and I love that we agree on things, but you're a male of fighting age, and you need to go home. Just kidding. But also true. They got to fight in your countries, man.
The irony is, I think it's not easier, but more effective to fight from where you can fight effectively without It's the old line from Colors, or cutting off your nose to spite your face. You can fight inefficiently, and you can fight stupidly, end up being silenced and suppressed, and then being useless. So,
happened to me. Happened to me so many times. I cannot tell you, when I probably should have kept my big mouth shut. But suppressed, banned, blocked every platform, demonetized. That's what they love to do to us now. Is that they love to demonetize us, right? They do not debanking us necessarily, but they love to take away your ability to earn an income and revenue. I imagine you're your own boss. I'm my own boss. We have more freedom of speech than the average American. Yep. Imagine if you had to go into an office and keep your mouth shut and listen to somebody tell you how it's going to be, and somebody who got a psychology degree from a local college, and they're going to judge your resume and decide what goes through, and they're going to do it based on who they like and who they're friends with, and who's the itty bitty titties in a miniskirt, right? These are the people who are going to control the outcome of the future productivity of the United States, who are the halls, the bastions of capitalism. They're the ones who are deciding who gets advanced.
What's the itty bitty titties in a teen?
Oh, no, you didn't see it. Okay, well, it was a viral TikTok. It was a viral TikTok where a bunch of girls, I'm sure some in the audience know what I'm talking about, where there was girl boss and a latte, girl boss and a latte. They're all standing, being as in the middle of a work day, being as obnoxious as possible on their phones. And then somebody did a great parody of it, where it's a black man who works there too, and he came in and he put his headphones on. He's actually doing real work, while the girl bosses are standing around doing nothing. Right? But they're in charge. They're in charge. They're in charge.
I'm going to have to explain to my wife now why I have itty bitty titties in the Google search engine. Hold on, but actually on that, speaking of being your own boss, yes, I am. And I used to be a lawyer. I used to work at a big law firm, and I call it oppositional defiance disorder. I couldn't take orders that I didn't agree with and then I went and started on my own, and then you could get rid of the clients who tell you to do things that you don't want to do when you're on your own, and that's the independence and the freedom with the risk. Biltong, by the way, this is not an ad, but he's a frequent watcher of the show, and you might want to look into this, Austin. It's amazing stuff. Biltong is one of the most protein-dense foods in the world. This is his $30 Rumble Rant. It's full of B12, zinc, iron, creatine. Looking for a healthy snack? Go to BiltongUSA.com. Promo code it's Viva10 for 10% off. He's based out of Roanoke, Austin, Texas, and he got a notice because in Texas he had a barbecue, an outdoor barbecue on his business lot, and that was not permissible. A barbecue, a table, and a bookshelf. And they said you got to take all three of these things away. A barbecue in Texas. In our locals community, there were a couple of chats. One here, goes back to the abortion discussion, comes from Ganthit. And he says sort of what we were getting at, or what I was getting at, is you get laws like this when you have no understanding of moderation of your religion. And I don't think they're talking to you, Austin. They're talking broadly speaking. Your religion, your values, your beliefs are yours alone, not the majority. A common sense abortion law, 18 to 22 weeks, no question for life of the mother, rape, incest, extreme circumstances, would do more to help the pro-life movement than anything. This is idea of absolutely no abortion for any reason that's been pushed in Florida, Texas, LA. I guess that's Louisiana, is ridiculous and moronic. And then this is from Prepared Citizen, says the war of attrition via abortion and sterility only works if you stop turning over your kids to these lunatics for indoctrination via the school system indoctrination.
Oh yeah.
Are you going to homeschool your kid?
I'm gonna try. There's so many challenges when you have two parents. Two parents kind of have to work in the middle class these days, and I'm kind of trying to see if I can maybe pull off some kind of a hybrid, because there are certain topics of which I am not well versed, right? Physics and chemistry and different things like that. So I might like to have someone who could teach them that. But I'd like to teach my daughter how to run a business, start a business, deal with profit and loss, and Excel and bank books, and how to market and be a creator and do. I imagine most young people these days want to do what you and I do for a lifestyle. If you're able to actually pull it off, it's a damn good life. And I certainly won't try and act like I'm some poor put upon person, because what we truly do is at the bleeding edge of technology and finance and punditry, and it's also very dangerous, right? You do always run into danger and fears of cancellations, or certainly sometimes the audience can just be fickle and perhaps go away. So there is always that danger too.
Yeah, I don't worry about that type of cancellation. Like, nobody's going to find a tweet from 10 years ago with some racial slur in it. My biggest fear, it's internalized, but if I could never go back to working for somebody else. And then the only question is, like, if it ever came to the point where, like, I don't want to go fishing at Viva Frei charters because, back in the day he told a redcoat to go fuck off or something.
Yeah. I can imagine it's harder. I can imagine it's difficult for less, courageous, virtuous souls to turn down money from institutions like Dunkin' Donuts, for example. And so what happens a lot is that the sponsorship corruption comes from the fact that they will take the money and shut up and not say the things that are too uncomfortable for their sponsor, which happens absolutely in the podcast world just as much as the mainstream media has completely captured. There is always pressure from a sponsorship, and you have to kind of be aware of that. But you and I have the best opportunity to resist that and reject that. I don't know if you've ever worked in the mainstream media. I haven't a few times, but the sponsors absolutely do get heavy, and it does make it difficult for one to maintain an ethical standard, because if you have a family, especially, you got to be careful, because you want to make enough money to be able to have, everybody wants to be able to get, excuse my language, fuck you money, right? We all want that fuck you money, because then we can say fuck you. I think the key there, and this is just for people who are interested in the behind the scenes stuff, is that for people like you or I, obviously you have a much bigger audience, so you're safer to an extent. But what I have done is to create multiple revenue streams and to protect myself from a platform shutting me down, demonetizing me. Instagram demonetized me this morning, and that was $300 a month, which is, that'll pay for the formula for a month, right? So you have to be careful about those things, because those things can affect your editorial, and you'll want to say, oh, well, I can't make anything for Instagram that might, tailor to them. Or do you try and please everyone, right, and end up pleasing no one? So I guess, you have to have your ride or dies, and the people who love you and who will stick with you through thick and thin. And it looks like some of the people in the audience who and thank you for donating to this channel gratitude for not you, but the listeners who've donated to you, who are my fans. Thanks for doing that, because of course that does help me, because you see that, I bring in a certain value, and we should talk about that so that we can avoid always conflicts of interest, at least to the extent that we can. This is show business after all, but we are also, we're here for a point. We have a passion and something that we believe that we're trying to advance, not just financial principles.
Well, no, absolutely. I mean, I found that, who was it? I was listening to someone on a podcast, and they said, I didn't want to be rich, I wanted to be free. Oh, it was, I'm such an idiot. It was Pavel Durov in his interview with Tucker Carlson. And he says, look, I'm worth whatever billions I am now. This was a month ago before he got arrested. He says, I never wanted to be rich. I wanted to be free. And I'm sitting there jogging, and I'm realizing, like, wealth is in the freedom, whether or not you have $1 million, $10 million, or you have the freedom that you don't have the freedom to do what it is that you feel is right is wealth. And so now
that's why they want to tax. That's why they want to tax our unrealized gains. I don't think we should be taxing realized gains. But I mean, the fact of the matter is that the reason why leftists, socialists, and international socialists and our enemies overseas are always that the United States has been in a state of war since World War II, and there've been hot wars through the Cold War, but there is still very much a war going on that is an information war, a propaganda war, spying that goes on. Like, there's still like wartime footing that's happening around the world in terms of propaganda information. So it's really about, who controls the tap. The NSA controlled the tap. They took control of it back in the early 90s when we were laying transatlantic cables and things like that. And I believe that John McAfee, my old friend and colleague and buddy that we competed for the LP presidential nomination, I believe that he is right, that really privacy is kind of a thing in the past. Like, I don't believe that there really is encryption that could possibly not be hacked.
I don't believe it either. That's why I don't even bother. I use Telegram, but not to protect. I just use it because some people only.
I never say anything on any internet or email anywhere, that I would not say out in public. At least now, when I was young and stupid and on AOL chat rooms.
It's amazing. I even back in the day, I was worried about being, someone finding my ISP address. I never said anything stupid, even with anonymous accounts. It might have been politically incorrect.
Not even age/sex/location ?
I don't even know what that is.
Oh, you didn't do AOL chat rooms then, ASL. Okay.
Did you say, so did you know John McAfee personally?
Only from the context of the presidential race.
Okay.
But I didn't know him until then, but we became very close.
Yeah,
and then after that, we were good friends, and we had some adventures, and what a wonderful guy. I think he understood cryptography better than most, though not better than all. After he sold his company, his information on info security was still very, very strong, but it wasn't necessarily up to date with some of the modern standards in terms of privacy protection. But he was absolutely prescient many times, and he did talk about Signal app and Telegram and WhatsApp, and he talked about encryption and said, privacy is over. Privacy was over a very long time ago. So anything that you say or can do, that you do on the internet is somebody's going to get access to.
I take for granted and then just don't do anything stupid. Now, I pulled this up just because, like, I love it when you read an article that presupposes the conclusion. Who was John McAfee and why did he commit suicide? I know what I believe. You maybe have a better perspective having known him personally. Do you think he took his own life?
Okay, so this is going to be this. Wilt thou leave me so unsatisfied? I will say, if knowing what I know about John, yes, because he was a prankster. And I think that he was the type of person who knew he was not going to get out of there and didn't want to, because he had a heart that beats free. He had a libertarian heart, and he wanted to be in Belize, and he wanted to be surrounded by bodacious beauties, in his age, and enjoy life and freedom and be on his boat and be with his wife, Janice, who's a wonderful woman. I think that when he knew this caged bird could not sing and could no longer be free, I think he did take his life. And I think he gave us some warnings. He said he never would, but I think it's because he loved a good conspiracy theory. And I think he wanted us, John did like to mess with people. He did like to mess with you, and he did like to play, some people would call it a psyop. And John did like to run psyops, and sometimes it was mostly for fun, maybe a little mischief. But yeah, I honestly put a libertarian heart in a prison like that, right? Honestly, yeah, I can see someone wanting to end it when your heart beats so free. When you're like you or me or someone like that, we take someone who's my whole existence, right, is my freedom, right? Everything I enjoy due to my freedom and being cognizant of that, and to put me in a cage or a crater. Oh yeah,
so
I can see.
You describe it like that, and now I'm visualizing Bodhi from Point Break at the end of the movie. And he's like, I can't get locked up in a cage, and so he lets him go kill himself. Oh geez, I'm not going to ruin the end of the movie. there might be a lot of people in here.
Another Keanu Reeves reference. First was The Matrix.
Well, I know, and also if anybody's not seen Point Break, it's a classic that has aged very well over time. I wanted to, what was it to ask about the RFK coalition? Because there was something else that I had going on with this. So the war on free speech in France, it seems to be a global crisis. This coalition and the prospect of bringing on more Democrat voices into the Trump unity ticket, people have been raising an interesting not a flag, but raising an interesting point. At what point do you worry about too many? Like, it's sort of like the New Yorkers moving to Florida to flee shitty New York policy and then voting it in when they get to Florida. Thus far, they haven't really done it. The New Yorkers are pretty damn freedom-oriented here. But the Californians who move to Texas and then, they flee their blue state shithole and then go to a red state and turn it into a blue state shithole like they've done with Austin. Do you think that there's a risk that a unity ticket could become an infiltration?
Yeah, there are no solutions. There are only trade-offs. If there's one thing that Donald Rumsfeld was actually right in his entire career, is that you go to war with the army that you have, not the army that you wish you had. And so if RFK Jr. and wants to bring his coalitions, we've got to fight this fight, and then we can deal with that after. It's like the Chinese under Chiang Kai-shek and the nationalists and the communists. They were at civil war with one another until the specter of invasion of Manchukuo from the Imperial Japanese caused them to put, things aside, and they teamed up with, and the American forces and the Allies in order to bring down Imperial Japan. This is the situation that we're in right now. It's, we're fighting against the Imperial Japan and Kamala Harris, right? A death cult, right? Of whom Kamala is the emperor, and they're going to send their suicide bombers after us. So we might as well, perish fighting on the same team. What's the meme from Lord of the Rings where it's like, he's like, I never thought I'd, fight with a dwarf. How about with a friend? Right? So maybe RFK Jr. is Gimli, and maybe the elf is Donald Trump.
You'll get the risks of what happens if you have kids in the house. What?
I caught an iguana.
The kid caught an iguana. He said,
Florida.
It was in the pool.
Shut up. Did you get it on camera?
You catch it by hand?
Get out of here. I'm going to watch it.
Those things got claws.
Apparently, there was an iguana in the pool, and the kid got the iguana. We need to have the mesh. They have these things with the mesh. I don't know what they're called. There's apparently some Florida word.
Yeah.
And the mesh blew off in a particularly strong gust of wind. So now a bunch
just
of
wait until it gets its first gator.
We see the gators all. Yeah, it's amazing. So now hold on. I'm sorry. What were you saying before I got distracted?
I was saying that when it comes to Robert F. Kennedy Jr., despite all the silly, Lord of the Rings memes, references, and things, that we do go to war with the army that we have, and we don't. There are no solutions. There are only trade-offs. We have to make some trade-offs. And the question is, do you want them? You could go to David French. You could go beg into David French on hands and knees. David, come back, please. Go back to George Bush and Mitt Romney and say, Romney, we were so wrong. You were amazing. Come back and fight with us. Like there aren't a lot of other factions to tap in terms of this battle. So at the end of the day, it's Stalingrad, and we're in the grain elevator, and we're just going to have to do the best we can to keep the Nazis from getting across the river, and we're defend the Volga. This is what it is.
I remember what it was. The distract here. You mentioned Kamala Harris, and
yes.
This is Defiant Else. I haven't listened to this. Can we listen to this together?
Yes, go.
Because have you seen it already?
No, I haven't seen it.
Should be
On
good.
a different front, Axios this week reported that President Trump, if he gets a second term, will sort of dial back, for lack of a better term, DEI programs that the Biden administration has put in forth. I know you disagree with that. I obviously believe that you don't want him to get a second term. That said, if that does happen, what do you think that would do to race relations in this country?
Well, let me say we're going to win, so it's not going to happen. But I think that, listen, today is actually, I believe, an anniversary in terms of Dr. King, right? And
I hate that nasal voice.
I was just in Selma, and we celebrated acknowledged the 59th anniversary of Bloody Sunday. I think it's really important that we as Americans always embrace our history, the parts that we're proud of and the parts that we're not proud of that we can't forget.
Sure.
And we should all agree that we should teach history. We should learn history if we're to ever have an accurate idea.
In many ways, it's
want
genius.
to go and where we
In many
don't
ways,
want
it's
to go.
exactly what she needs to be saying from an electoral perspective. This is the playbook. She's, what, if you're going to give one credit to your opponent, right, and you should never underestimate your opponent, it's that she is 100% on message. She is on script. She is not deviating from the script. She is not saying anything. I don't know if you ever saw that old Blues Traveler song, the music video for it. It was called Hook.
Oh,
Did you
yeah,
ever-
yeah, for
you never
sure.
s-
The hook. I never read the lyrics. And when I did, I understood that the entire song was a joke, a
Yes.
troll.
It
Talking
doesn't matter
about-
what I say,
As long as I
I
sing with
say it with
inflection.
inflection. And there is something amiss. I am being insincere. In fact, I don't mean any of this. Still, my confession draws you near. Familiar heroes from long ago makes you think some inner vast reflection. But in fact, I don't mean any of this, right? And then it's like, but the hook
The hook
brings you back. What makes the pan refuse to grow is that the hook brings you back, right? This it's an absolute brilliant satire, and it's all set to Pachelbel's Canon in D.
Mhm.
An absolute beautiful satire and takedown of not only pop culture but politicians, because in the song, the music video Hook, they feature a sort of Tammany Hall style Citizen Kane character, right, who is telling the stories. George Washington in my day, you know, John F. Kennedy, and they invoke these familiar heroes from long ago, because that works on the people who listen to Kamala Harris. She's that politician, right? She is Citizen Kane to some extent, minus the capitalistic, which we could give that to, you know, Trump and Mar-a-Lago, for example. But when it comes to how she messages and poises her message, it is the perfect message that you need to hit that low information voter, right? The low information voter is going to resonate with that. Yes, the history from the past. It's like Obama. It's exactly what Obama did, right? Joy, right? Instead of hope, right? That is what you need for like that left, the affluent white female liberal. She needs to hear that in the morning. She needs her pep talk. She needs Mamala Kamala, you know, making her a bowl of porridge or oatmeal and telling her it's going to be okay, that we're going to have joy. Yes, we're going to have joy today. And they're all like little leftist Democrat Stepford wives, right? Programmed like NPC bug-eyed chips. When Kamala Harris talks like that, you don't get the signal. You don't have the chip. You're not getting the download. She's downloading it, and everybody is repeating it. She gets the talking points from her masters, her paymasters, and then she reads the script like, I mean, a perfect robot. She is Kamala Bot 3.0, perfect AI.
Well, you know what? You make a very, this is not to say I'm smarter than low information voters, but just might be more educated or informed. It's a decent point. It repulses my stomach to listen to her talk because it's just nothing but verbal diarrhea. And yet it's true that it's the platitudes and the nonsensicals that the people who want to hear it are going to hear it and hear what they want to hear in it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't underestimate her at all. I'm actually, not to get black-pilled again, I've never truly appreciated the degree to which we could be voting, or they could be running an AI generated image. And if the media understands the rules and plays ball, you could literally have elected a person who doesn't actually exist. And
they have a well-oiled machine. We do not have the infrastructure that the left has. We don't have the money the left has. They have so much more money than we do, and they have the media. They have Hollywood. Like somebody was saying the other day, I just laughed because I used to work at the Fox Business Network, and when I was there in television producing in New York and in DC, I would go to the other studios and visit the other networks and meet their producers and see what they were all about, how the game ran. And somebody was like, no, Austin, it's not unfair. Fox News is there to balance out the rest of the media. I'm like, you have no sense of the scope or the scale of the size of the media. It's like my sweet wife. She is so innocent and pure, and she just doesn't think about these things in dark and dastardly ways. But when Joe Biden gave up to give his final press conference before he stepped down, we were talking about the reporters, and she goes, do you think that there's one Republican to one Democrat reporter in the office that are there listening to it? Yeah, you smile. I smiled, and I smiled. Like, thank God we caught it on camera. It was live. We were live reacting, and she was there because we do Freedom Family Fridays here on Rumble, and she comes on, and it's so adorable. So we bring the baby too. And Stephanie is like, one reporter. I go, Steffi, there aren't. I mean, even if
Ducey is the only one, maybe.
And they didn't let him talk. They didn't let him ask any questions. But I'm like, it's a monopoly. It's a leftist. Like the left has a monopoly on the institutions, on academia. The left has a monopoly on the institutions of government, except for the Supreme Court, and that's about it. we have the Electoral College. It's probably one of the only things keeping us from full tyranny, right? But at the end of the day, what the people don't understand the scale of the fight that we are up against. The money they run like a well-oiled machine. The media can download the program, right? Satellite TVs. We got Rumble, and Rumble's growing. And when I see somebody and they see my Rumble hat, because I wear a Rumble hat in my little small town community, and it's a small, it's a rural city. But they see Rumble, they give me the nod. It's kind of like, oh, I know this guy's Republican or Trump or conservative or whatever. But the fact is that Fox isn't even entirely on our side.
I think they are actually entirely on the opposite side. I mean, the going back to their paying Dominion $750 million to settle the lawsuit, what they did in the last election. I mean, they've got a few decent
Tucker Carlson.
Yep.
Judge Napolitano, my old boss. I mean, they got rid of us after 2 years of saying a whole lot of crazy libertarian stuff on that network for a little while. I was kind of surprised I got away with some of the things I got away with, to be honest. But maybe, I just, caged birds weren't meant to fly. They do become golden cages, and the media, when they work at these mainstream media institutions, they keep these people in there with the power and the fame, because, oh my God, I cannot tell you how good it feels when you're 27, 8, 9, whatever year old man I was, my late 20s. You can walk into any club in New York City when you got a press pass and they know who you are and you're a producer. I mean, the amount of power that these elites have, that they wield over us, they can wield over a common person. You don't see it when you live out in red state country and in red states and things. But if you operate at all anywhere near power, near Washington, D.C., or in, power centers in California, they live like gods. They're not gods. They think they're gods. They act like gods. And then when, again, back to the boys, it very much feels like the evil superhero teams, operating with all of their handlers and minders. In some ways, it is very much a comedy, but these are dangerous people. Many of them are Epstein types, right? The Bill Gateses of the world and things like that. And you have to watch out and keep an eye out on those. These days, though, it really is sad, because when you think about COVID-19 and all the people who snitched on their neighbors, all the people who, and in a moment, when you think about the tyranny of evil, you probably got more to fear from your neighbor than you do from Bill Gates, because of what we saw and the mindset of the people who would do that.
I'd say the only retort would be is that you fear your neighbor because of the Bill Gates, and not if you have to fear them more than, it's only because they are susceptible to manipulation by those very evil forces.
Sure.
So now you spent COVID out in Missouri.
Oh, it was beautiful, and I so God bless it, America, that I got out in the time that I did. History will say it was prescient, but it was just dumb luck. I knew I could be a digital nomad and work wherever. Why not be closer to my family? Lower cost of living. I lived in DC, but everybody's vapid. And what do you do? And who are you? What can I get from you? And I miss the food. I miss the Peruvian chicken joints, but the freedom is worth much better. And I can make Peruvian chicken at home if I have to. So, get my yucca and fry it up. So at the end of the day, spending COVID in a state like Missouri was wonderful. We had our fair share of tyranny, nothing compared to the rest of the country. And even Florida, Ron DeSantis at first was kind of like, yo, man, shutting down beaches. It's like, yo, ease up. But thankfully he and many others came on board and fought the good fight, when it became obvious what we were up against. Missouri, I'm really excited, actually. Never before, maybe if I ever said this, I'm actually excited to the congressman that we're going to send to Washington, D.C. that's in my district now, because I know him, and he was like super grade A hero during the pandemic, fighting against the COVID restrictions. And
who is it?
His name is Dr. Bob Onder. You should talk to him.
Dr. Bob, how do you spell his last name?
Onder. Dr. Bob Onder. He is former senator, and he just won the primary here in mid-Missouri. His district goes over close to St. Louis. But I'm really excited to see what he does in there, because he is not like the guy before him who was like this banker type, very establishment, says you're pro-Trump, but really is kind of like old school Mitt Romney style kind of Republican. This Bob Onder is a Trumper. He's MAGA, but he's also kind of one of us when it comes to the issues on economics, right? He's Dr. Bob Onder. He's going to be the next congressman from mid-Missouri, and you're welcome, because we're going to send him there. I think he joins up. I don't know that he surpasses Massey, but it's close.
When you say he's up for election in 2024.
So he won the primary, which means in this very, very red district that he will be
a shoo-in. Okay.
Yeah. No, they're not going to vote the Democrat for this candidate this fall. It's pretty much a sure thing. So Senator and Dr. Bob Onder, COVID hero, fought against tyranny as a senator, a state senator here in Missouri, a doctor, a lawyer, a senator, now a congressman. Very impressive man. The way that I got close to him was that initially his sons were actually big fans of mine when I ran for the U.S. Senate. His sons were pretty libertarian. So they voted for me and supported me in the 2018 primary. And then I got close to his family. He came to my wedding, Stephanie and my wedding. And he was my number one source for information during the pandemic about not only what was happening with, in the legislature and with the localities that were instituting tyrannical positions in Missouri. When it did happen, again, much less worse than other states, but it did happen. But he was at the front lines fighting it on the Senate level. And then he also, he's a pulmonary doctor, so he could talk to us about diseases of the lungs. And he knows a thing or two about how vaccines work. And he could give me up to the minute information. A lot of that changed during the course of the pandemic because we were getting more and more information, but he was honest. And he told me what he got when he got it. When he changed the vaccine, when the data came out that really proved where the vaccine was at, he changed his mind on it based on the information that came out, because that's the kind of thing that you want to see, not somebody doubling down or tripling down, quadrupling down on a position when they've been proven to be wrong about something. That, I think, is what sets him apart from many people who seek these positions of power. They're only poll testing things, like Kamala. Everything she says completely poll tested. Bob Onder is unscripted, says what he believes, has credentials, has credibility. I think he'll be a great congressman. Maybe not Thomas Massey level of the whole world, but I mean, definitely in terms of quality, in terms of like a Liberty Republican, he's about as good as it gets.
And now your channel, what's your schedule like? I know I presume you talk politics, but what's your schedule like? And
I do the morning shift. Yeah, you're so great, kind to do this for me and give me this opportunity, especially on Rumble, where rumble.com/AP4Liberty.
This is it right here. We're looking.
Yeah, that's the show. Wake Up America show. It's got a kind of retro 80s synthwave vibe, as you can kind of see. It's fun. And you can follow me there. And if you want to hang out with me and my friends on the locals page, please do so. That's a great place to hang out. And I create the wildest, wackiest, most cutting edge, like bleeding edge merchandise on my shop, where I 3D print little Buddhas that have the president's heads on them. So there's like a Donald Trump Buddha. And
what is the website for this? Not that I'm going to pull it up right now, but I'm going
to. That's okay. It's called 4libertyshop.com. So I'm AP for Liberty.
You got 4libertyshop.com?
I did. Yeah.
That's pretty good.
Yes. I started out with just like my poor blessed wife. She used to ship out so many boxes of these dang Buddhas. And we started out selling Thomas Jefferson and George Washington heads on a Buddha body. And then 2 years later, it's become like a patriotic bazaar, a superstore of patriotic merch that you can see. I mean, you can't get anywhere because we design it. And I used to suck at designing, but now I'm really damn good. So like if you scroll down, you can see like some of my designs, like shirts.
I still haven't figured out how to
pocket tees. Comrade Camila t-shirt.
Okay, that's right. So here's my question to you in terms of merch strategy. Do people want to buy like negative merch? Like I had one that said
yes.
It was Kamala Harris's face and it said, "I am retarded." I thought that might have been. I took that one down and said,
"Yes,
don't vote for."
No. You just got to tell you. It's all how you sell it. It's all marketing, right? It's so it's all how you sell it to some extent. I had Buck Fiden shirts. Now that is a very popular shirt. I sell those in Japan.
This is amazing.
So code that is Donald Trump Lives Japanese manga tee. And so it says there on the left in Japanese, Donald Trump wa itikeru. Hi, arigatou gozaimasu. And so Donald, it doesn't say all of that, but it does say Donald Trump wa itikeru. So the Japanese, him surviving the assassination attempt in Japanese, nobody else has that, and I know because I made it. So
that's fantastic.
If it's anywhere else, it's because they knocked it off. But it's a fun place. You're gonna laugh. Check it out. Sign up for my text alerts on that, so you can get coupons and deals. And just thanks for the opportunity, man. This is great. I knew we were gonna get along. We should.
I like you. I mean, first of all, where was that from? I like you. I feel like Borat. No, it's.
Do you like me?
Do you like me? First of all, I love it. It's you're fantastic, and it's like there's a massive community of people out there. There's a massive community of people digesting, absorbing this information. And the more perspectives, the better. And I'm also like, for the amount of fun that I make of libertarians, because they're a peculiar bunch.
Oh, I could do that for hours, days.
But I think to the extent that people are not evil, you try to bridge the divide. When it comes to the Chuck Schumers of the world. There's no divide to be bridged there. There's only protect yourself from the evil and find good, not allies, but find good, trusted people to fight that battle with. Because some people are beyond good and evil. Or who was it? Was it
Beyond Good and Evil? That's Nietzsche.
Nietzsche. Beyond, and I read that back when I studied philosophy.
It's a good book.
It was very, very dense. I think I forgot a lot of it.
Those scary ideas coming out of Nietzsche. Well, terrifying, wonderful ideas, but scary.
Yeah, no, there's some people who are there's no bridge to be had with them. There's only protect yourself from them without hurting yourself. So you're fantastic. So we are now officially digital friends, and we'll meet up one day in real life. We're going to end, and we'll say our proper goodbyes. Send me all of the links. I'm going to put them in the pinned comment. Everybody knows where to find you. Locals, we won't have an after show today, but I'll get you guys a little bit this afternoon when I go fishing with the kid. And Austin, stick around. We will say our proper goodbyes. But one last time, AP4Liberty on Rumble. Twitter, what's your handle?
It's AP4Liberty everywhere. So whatever your favorite juice is, wherever you like to get your digital fix, Daddy Elon, give me the juice at AP4Liberty over on X.com. Follow me there. And I hope that we can do this again. Maybe you can come on my show.
Absolutely.
But thank you very much. And thanks for standing up for freedom. These are dark times. People are really tempted by authoritarian ideologies right now. And so we've got to kind of keep that siren song, keep them away. And, when you're down by the river and you're telling people to stop listening to the sirens, make sure you kill those poisonous snails that you have identified.
It's like Tucker said, it's, I see what you're getting at. I was stepping on the apple snail eggs the other day. No, I believe it's like Tucker said, it's big power for small people, and people who are happy and confident don't seek to subjugate others or dominate others.
Yes, because life is a wonderful thing. You have to manage all these people. You understand? Like, I don't enjoy managing people. Managing people is the only thing that you have to do in order to get a job done. And then at the end of the day, you want to go home. I don't want to be a boss of everybody all the time, constantly telling everyone what to do, but some people, they love that, man. They get off on that. Yeah. And that's when you're talking about like literal psychopaths and people who are capable of staying out of jail for the most part, which some of them go to jail, maybe Bob Menendez if we're lucky. But most of these people who are like the power-hungry, deranged psychopaths, watch Ron Paul's final speech. His final speech in Congress, Ron Paul, when he left, he called them psychopathic authoritarians to their face. That's what they are.
Yep, some of them aspire for power at all costs, and we're seeing that right now. Austin, you stick around. We're going to say our proper advice. Everyone else out there, I will see you tomorrow. 12:30 is my slot, and I don't know who's on for tomorrow, but it'll be a good show tomorrow. Austin, thank you very much for coming on. This was great.
Thank you.
Everyone, peace out.